Hey, my name is Marcus. I'm 29 years old, and I work as a night shift security guard at a medical equipment warehouse on the outskirts of Denver. My days, or rather my nights, are pretty straightforward. I clock in at 10 p.m., walk the perimeter every hour with a flashlight that flickers more than it shines, and spend the rest of my shift in a cramped office that smells like burnt coffee and old carpet. By morning, I drive home as the sun rises over the Rockies, turning the sky pink and gold while I'm too tired to appreciate it. I rent the bottom half of a duplex in a neighborhood where the houses lean slightly and the yards are more dirt than grass. It's quiet, cheap, and exactly what I can afford on my salary. No roommates, no pets, just me and the hum of the refrigerator that kicks on every 20 minutes like clockwork. I don't have much saved. After rent, utilities, and my truck payment, there's enough left for groceries and maybe a six-pack on Fridays if I'm lucky. No vacations, no gym membership, no plans beyond making it to next month. I've gotten used to it. The quiet rhythm of a life that's simple, if a little hollow. It's been 3 years since I last went on a date. Not because some devastating breakup destroyed me or anything that dramatic. I just got tired. Tired of the awkward small talk over overpriced appetizers, the forced laughter, the way people would glance at their phones mid-conversation like they were already planning their escape. What do you do for fun? They'd ask, and I'd shrug because walking warehouse aisles at 2 a.m. doesn't exactly make for compelling conversation. I've been ghosted, politely rejected, and once, memorably, told I had no ambition by a woman who sold essential oils on Instagram. Eventually, I stopped trying. Solitude felt easier, safer even. No expectations, no disappointments, no pretending to be someone I wasn't. That changed when I got a call from my Aunt Patricia. She's my mom's younger sister, the kind who still sends birthday cards with $20 bills tucked inside and calls every few months just to check in. We don't talk often, but when we do, it feels real. "Marcus, honey, I need a favor," she said, her voice carrying that mix of warmth and worry I'd grown up hearing. "My neighbor's daughter is in a tough spot. Medical stuff. She needs help getting to appointments, and her family, well, they're complicated. Could you maybe give her a ride tomorrow? Just once." I almost said no. I had plans to sleep, to do nothing, to exist in my usual bubble of isolation. But Patricia had helped me out when I was younger, let me crash on her couch when I was between jobs and too proud to ask my parents. I owed her. "Sure," I said, grabbing a pen. "What's the address?" The next afternoon, I pulled up to a modest brick house in a neighborhood nicer than mine but not by much. The lawn was neatly trimmed, flower boxes hung under the windows, and a wheelchair ramp led up to the front door. I sat in my truck for a moment, engine idling, suddenly nervous. I didn't know what to expect. Patricia hadn't given me details, just an address and a time. I knocked twice. The door opened almost immediately, revealing a woman about my age, maybe 27 or 28, with shoulder-length auburn hair pulled into a low ponytail. She was in a wheelchair, her hands resting on the armrests, her posture straight despite everything. She wore jeans and a soft gray sweater, her expression cautious but not unfriendly. "Are you Marcus?" she asked, her voice steady, maybe a little guarded. "Yeah," I said, suddenly aware of how rumpled I probably looked after 4 hours of sleep. "You must be," I paused, realizing I didn't actually know her name. "Elliot," she finished, a slight smile tugging at her lips. "Elliot Hayes. Thanks for doing this. It's appreciated." I helped her into the passenger seat, folding the wheelchair and loading it into the truck bed. She moved with practiced efficiency, her upper body strong, her legs motionless. She didn't offer explanations, and I didn't ask. We drove in silence for the first 10 minutes, the radio playing low, some classic rock station I kept on out of habit. The appointment was at a physical therapy clinic across town. I'd expected maybe 15 minutes of awkward quiet, a quick drop-off, and then I'd be done with my good deed for the year. But at a red light, Elliot spoke. "I need to ask you something," she said, her tone suddenly serious. I glanced over. She was staring straight ahead, jaw tight, fingers gripping the edge of her seat. "Okay," I said cautiously. "This is going to sound insane," she continued, still not looking at me. "But I need a husband by tomorrow. I blinked, certain I'd misheard. What? She finally turned to face me, and I saw something in her eyes I hadn't noticed before. Desperation, yes, but also determination. A kind of fierce resolve that made my chest tighten. My parents, she said slowly, are trying to have me declared incompetent. They want to put me in a long-term care facility, take control of my finances, my medical decisions, everything. The court hearing is tomorrow morning, and the only way I can stop it is if I'm married. Colorado law. Something about proving I have a support system, a spouse who can assist with care. If I show up married, they can't touch me. I stared at her, the light turning green, a car honking behind us. I drove forward on autopilot, my mind racing. I started, then stopped. That's insane. I know, she said, her voice cracking slightly. But it's real. My parents think I can't take care of myself because of this. She gestured to her legs, her wheelchair. They think I'm a burden, a liability. They've already picked out the facility. I've seen the brochures. Beige walls, shared rooms, no privacy, no life. I won't go there. I asked, my voice coming out rougher than I intended. Why would you ask a complete stranger? Because you're the only person who showed up, she said simply. Everyone else, friends, extended family, they all have excuses. You don't know me. You don't owe me anything. And maybe that makes you the only person I can trust right now. We pulled into the clinic parking lot. I put the truck in park but didn't move. My hands stayed on the wheel, my knuckles white. This is crazy, I said, more to myself than to her. Completely, totally crazy. I know, she whispered. But I'm out of options, Marcus. I'm asking you to save my life. Not from dying, but from losing everything that makes it worth living. I looked at her then, really looked. Saw the fear barely contained behind her composure. Saw the way her hands trembled slightly despite her strong grip. Saw a woman who'd been pushed to the edge and was asking a stranger to catch her. Then move in with me, I said, the words leaving my mouth before my brain could catch up. The hearing's tomorrow, right? We can't get legally married that fast anyway. But if you move in tonight, we can show we're living together, planning to marry. It's something. It's more than nothing. Elliot stared at me, her eyes wide, disbelief and hope warring on her face. You do that? You don't even know me. I don't know, I admitted, running a hand through my hair. Maybe I'm tired of playing it safe. Maybe I'm tired of doing nothing while people who need help get screwed over by bureaucracy and family politics. Or maybe I paused, searching for the right words. Maybe I just think you deserve better than beige walls and shared rooms. Her eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back quickly. Okay, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Let's do it. After the appointment, we drove back to her house. Elliot moved through her home with quiet efficiency, pointing out what she needed. Clothes, medications, her laptop, important documents. I loaded boxes into my truck while she called her caseworker, explaining the situation in calm, measured tones. Her parents weren't home, and she left them a note on the kitchen counter. Simple, direct. I've moved out. Don't contact me. She didn't elaborate, didn't explain. Just 4 words that severed a lifetime of complicated history. My duplex felt smaller with 2 people in it. I cleared space in the bedroom, insisting she take the bed while I'd sleep on the couch. She protested, but I wouldn't budge. The place isn't exactly accessible, I admitted, looking at the narrow hallways, the single step up to the bathroom. But we'll make it work. We have to. That first night was strange, surreal. We ordered pizza, sitting at my small kitchen table that wobbled if you leaned on it wrong. We didn't talk about the hearing, about her parents, about what we'd gotten ourselves into. Instead, we talked about small things. She told me about her degree in graphic design, about the freelance work she did from home, about her love for old black and white movies. I told her about growing up in Colorado, about my dad who'd worked construction until his back gave out, about my collection of vinyl records I'd been slowly building since high school. The conversation flowed easier than I expected, like we were old friends catching up rather than strangers planning a fake domestic partnership. Around midnight, exhaustion finally hit both of us. I set her up in the bedroom, making sure everything she needed was within reach. A glass of water on the nightstand, her phone charger plugged in, The bathroom light left on. She looked up at me from the bed, her expression soft, vulnerable. Thank you, Marcus. For all of this. For not thinking I'm crazy. I shrugged, uncomfortable with gratitude. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be intense. I lay on the couch in the dark, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of another person in my space. The creak of the bed as she shifted, the soft sound of her breathing evening out as she fell asleep. I stared at the ceiling, wondering what the hell I'd gotten myself into, wondering if this was the stupidest or bravest thing I'd ever done. Maybe both. The courthouse the next morning was all fluorescent lights and echoing hallways. Elliot wore a navy dress, her hair down, makeup carefully applied. She looked calm, composed, every inch the competent adult her parents claimed she wasn't. I wore the only suit I owned, bought for my cousin's wedding 5 years ago, slightly too tight in the shoulders. We sat outside the courtroom on a wooden bench, her wheelchair positioned beside me, my hand instinctively resting on the armrest near hers. Her parents arrived with their lawyer, a severe woman in a sharp suit carrying a leather briefcase. Elliot's mother was thin, elegant, her face pinched with disapproval. Her father was tall, gray-haired, his expression cold and unyielding. They didn't acknowledge Elliot. Didn't even look at her. Just walked past like she was invisible. Elliot's hand found mine, squeezing tightly. Her palm was cold, her grip almost painful. I squeezed back, a silent promise. I'm not going anywhere. Inside the courtroom, the judge, a woman in her 60s with reading glasses perched on her nose, listened as both sides presented their cases. Elliot's parents argued she couldn't manage her own care, that she was isolated, without support, a danger to herself. Their lawyer presented medical records, highlighted the severity of her paralysis, painted a picture of helplessness and vulnerability. Then it was our turn. Elliot spoke calmly, clearly. She explained her work, her income, her carefully managed medical appointments. She introduced me as her fiancé, living together, planning our future. I provided my lease, proof of residence, letters from my employer confirming stable employment. It wasn't much, but it was real. It was something. The judge looked between us, her expression unreadable. Mr. Chen, she said, addressing me directly. You understand the responsibilities involved in being Miss Hayes' primary support? I met her gaze steadily. Yes, Your Honor. I do. And you're prepared to take this on? To assist with medical care, daily living, all the challenges that come with this commitment? I glanced at Elliot, saw the fear barely hidden in her eyes, saw the woman who'd trusted a stranger with her entire future. Yes, I said firmly. I am. The judge was silent for a long moment, then nodded. I'm denying the petition, she said. Miss Hayes has clearly demonstrated competency and has a support system in place. She doesn't require guardianship at this time. Elliot's breath left her in a rush, her hand tightening around mine. Her parents stood abruptly, her mother's face flushing with anger, but they said nothing. Just turned and left, their lawyer trailing behind. We sat there for a moment, neither of us quite believing it was over. We made it, Elliot whispered, tears finally spilling down her cheeks. We actually made it. Yeah, I said softly, my own throat tight. We did. Back at the duplex, the reality of our situation settled in. We'd won the battle, but now we had to figure out how to actually live together, two strangers who'd promised a judge we were building a life. The first few days were awkward, tentative. We established routines. I adjusted my sleep schedule, staying up during the day to help if she needed anything. She worked at the kitchen table, her laptop surrounded by design projects, occasionally asking my opinion on color schemes or layouts. I'd make coffee, she'd criticize how weak I brewed it. I'd leave dishes in the sink, she'd pointedly put them in the dishwasher. Small domestic friction, the kind that comes with sharing space. But underneath the awkwardness, something else grew. Curiosity, maybe? Or recognition. One afternoon, about a week in, I found her struggling to reach something in the top kitchen cabinet. She'd pulled herself up slightly, balancing carefully, frustration evident in every movement. I walked over without thinking, reaching past her to grab the box of pasta she'd been aiming for. She tensed initially, then relaxed. Thanks, she said quietly. I could have gotten it eventually. I know, I said, setting the box on the counter. But you don't have to do everything alone anymore. She looked at me then, really looked, her expression softening. That's the hardest part, she admitted. Accepting help. Feeling like I'm not a burden. You're not a burden, I said firmly. I hesitated, the word roommate feeling insufficient. You're my friend. Her eyes glistened slightly. Am I? Yeah, I said simply. Yeah. That night, we watched one of her favorite movies, Casablanca, on my old TV. She quoted lines under her breath, smiling at parts she'd clearly seen dozens of times. I found myself watching her more than the screen, noticing the way she tilted her head when she was really focused, the small scar above her left eyebrow, the way her entire face lit up during the final airport scene. Halfway through, she caught me staring. What? She asked, self-conscious suddenly. Nothing, I said, looking back at the TV. Just, I'm glad you're here. She was quiet for a moment. Me too, she finally said. Me too, Marcus. The weeks turned into a month, then two. We fell into rhythms, learned each other's habits. She sang softly while working, usually old jazz standards. I hummed tunelessly in the shower, driving her crazy. She was a night owl, I was adjusting to being diurnal again. We'd meet in the middle, late evening conversations over tea, talking about everything and nothing. She told me about the accident, eventually. A car crash when she was 23, a drunk driver running a red light. 6 months in the hospital, countless surgeries, physical therapy that felt endless. She'd lost the use of her legs but gained a perspective she never would have had otherwise. I'm not grateful for it, she clarified. But I've learned to build a life anyway. A different life, but still mine. I told her about my dad's death 3 years ago, how it had gutted me, left me adrift. How I'd taken the security job because it was easy, because it required nothing of me emotionally. How I'd been sleepwalking through life, convinced I didn't deserve more. Maybe we both stopped living for a while, she said softly. And maybe meeting each other was the universe's weird way of kicking us back into gear. Maybe, I agreed, feeling something shift in my chest. One Saturday, I came home from a quick grocery run to find Elliot crying in the bedroom, her laptop open to an email. I dropped the bags immediately, crossing to her. Hey, what's wrong? My parents, she said, her voice thick. They're contesting the judge's decision. Filing an appeal. They won't stop. They're never going to stop. I knelt beside her wheelchair, taking her hands in mine. Then we won't either. We'll fight every appeal, every motion, every single thing they throw at us. They don't get to win. She looked at me, tears streaming down her face. Why are you doing this? You could have walked away after the hearing. This isn't your fight. Because it became my fight the moment you trusted me, I said, my voice rough with emotion. Because somewhere along the way, this stopped being fake. You're not just my roommate or my friend. I paused, my heart pounding. You're the best thing that's happened to me in years, Elliot. And I'm not losing that. I'm not losing you. She stared at me, her breath hitching. Marcus, I care about you, she whispered. More than I should. More than I planned. Good, I said, leaning closer. Because I'm completely in love with you. And I don't care if that's fast or crazy or complicated. It's true. Our lips met, soft at first, then deeper, years of loneliness and fear melting away in that single moment. When we finally pulled apart, she was smiling, really smiling, her eyes bright. So what do we do now? She asked. Now, I said, brushing a tear from her cheek, we live. Really live. Together. And we tell your parents, and the courts, and anyone else who asks that this isn't fake. It never was. Not from the moment you moved in. She kissed me again, and in that small, imperfect duplex, we built something real. Something worth fighting for. Something that started with desperation but grew into love. And that was enough. More than enough.